Just a reminder again, it's constitutional amendment, and we have our guests right here in the studio. Quickly, introductions. Professor Joy Ngozi Ezeilo is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Emeritus Dean of Law, University of Nigeria in Nsukka, former Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development in Enugu State. She's also founder of Women's Aid Collective, and is currently United Nations expert on international fact-finding mission to Sudan. And she's right here with us, live in the studio. We'd like to welcome you, Professor Joy Ezeilo. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
It's good to have you live in the studio. I can't remember when we
did have you.
Let me ask Professor Ezeilo, who is the constitutional lawyer here, do you think that a constitutional amendment can take care of issues concerning the involvement of the courts? Because when you disagree with INEC, for instance, the only way to go is to the court.
Exactly. That's why we have separation of powers, and we have three arms of government. The legislature, they make the law, and then the executive implement, and then, of course, the judiciary interprets the law. So if there is a dispute, and for peaceful coexistence, you have to take it to court and not the laws into your hands. But we've seen, even for the court, that the backlog of cases is also caused by huge number of election petition matters, or election, or call it even political party affairs. They've taken a big chunk of judicial time. But you can't say people should do away with the, going to court. Mm-hmm. But it's just a call for continual, to improve, continuous improvement on the credibility of elections in Nigeria. And again, to begin to set these timelines, such as we have seen with regard to previous amendment of the Constitution, like in the 5th alteration, to have a timeline for filing of election petition and ending within 1 day. So those are important. But then it just takes care of a certain category of cases. But the overall is to address the root causes. I've been to countries, like studied electoral systems in other countries of similarly running federal system. Take India, for example. If you look at election petition, they are the world's largest democracy with nearly 1 billion people voting in election. And then the petition is 0.1% in terms of litigation. It doesn't happen because they have a system where you vote, electronic voting machine. I've seen that demonstrated. I've been to the Electoral Commission of India, and then they verify, and everything is clear to people. In fact, even when they distribute materials, there is no interest. You see the election drag for 1 month. People can drop things by camel to the hinterland. Nobody have that. There is no that culture of manipulation, of trying to hijack, of trying to alter. So it is about attitudes. The do or die politics we are playing, the political terrain, the fact that it has also become the easiest access to means of production and also to wealth. So we have to look at that. But then a constitutional amendment is beyond that. But we have to tackle the root causes. And I'm worried as a lawyer, as a senior advocate, about delays, even in the appellate court, because these cases have to drag, like the Right Honorable described, from High Court, up to the Supreme Court. And by the time, some of them get, especially pre-election matters, some are already overtaken by events, So it's really a need for, there have to be a decisive action. And I think going forward, we might also have a permanent court for taking electoral matters, since that is already even taken.
Bloat the legislature. I'm just asking. I'm asking the question that Nigerians will usually ask.
I think it's lack of understanding, and it's most unfortunate that those gender-related or specific bills were rejected. And there were about 5 of them, but 3 really speak directly to women issues in terms of affirmative action, in terms of political appointment as ministers, commissioners, which was even a pathway. When you look at even the percentage was 10%. And then they talk about 35% in terms of party executive, which I don't even think should find its way in the Constitution, wasn't an issue. And then the main one, with additional seats in Parliament, is the main one, but was largely misunderstood, because first it wasn't even to take effect in 2024, because I was also involved in the process as a consultant to National Assembly, House of Reps. It wasn't to take effect in this, 2023 election. It was to take effect in 2027 election, and it's about inclusion. So inclusion will always cost money. And if you want to make, because democracy, women have a right to participate in the government of their country. So also youth and other people with disability. Once you're a Nigerian citizen, law-abiding, not in conflict with the law or convicted, you have a right to vote or be voted for. And if you find that consistently a particular gender has been so marginalized, look at what we have. We've regressed without having a will. At National Assembly now, is 3% of Senate seats occupied by women, mere 3%. Decimal.
I'm sorry, but the Constitution doesn't bar women from contesting.
No. You have to look at...
It's democracy.
You have to look at systemic gender discrimination against women, especially in the political sphere. Where the power is, women are not. And we know why. So if you look at both sociocultural factors, if you look at also the money, why also women fail in their political enterprise is also they don't have the money, the funding, the means of production. Access to that means of production that will enable you to compete is not there. But let me tell you, of the strongest one is issue of culture. Because the perception or the conceptualized dichotomy of public and private spheres, you remember the other room, women belong to the other room, and women belong in domestic sphere, and women shouldn't be seen in public. All of this really affects mindset of people when you think of who is to be a leader, who should be voted for. So we have 3% in Senate, 4% in House of Reps. Out of 990 state houses of assembly seats, we have only 48 women. And even in some states, over 12 states have no woman in the state house of assembly. So how can women hold themselves bound by laws made by such bodies? I've been part of making of constitutions of other countries, especially emerging states and democracies like Nigeria. I was part of Rwanda constitution, even including the provision that transformed to it becoming the most gender-sensitive parliament. In 2001, 2000, I spent a lot of time in Rwanda with the Constitution Drafting Committee. I've been involved also with National Assembly here for more than 12 years, since 2010 or so, in the constitution process. And it's tiring to see that what ordinarily should pass, if you talk about indigenship, and you see how this is playing out, and undermining the unity of this country. Every Nigerian has a right to reside in any part of Nigeria, so long as, and that's a constitutional provision. And women, the indigeneity affect them in a particular way, even though it affects other Nigerians. Once you're living and working outside your state, we know how it affects. So looking at all of this, women are saying, for them, their right to participate in the government of their country, there is no budget too high to pay for that. And that additional seat will not, we've done the economics of it. Every law costs money. You see, even the one we made on cyber security, and they are thinking of where do we get the funding, and you have that provision. Every piece of legislation costs money to implement. And you have to weigh the advantages, and that inclusion, feeling of being part of the system in Nigeria, and making people feel happy. That unmet justice need can also fuel all kinds of conflict we see.
Professor Ezeilo, you want to weigh in on this?
About implementation. Even it passed outside the constitutional amendment. People were very happy about that bill passing. But then actualization, and that reminds us about the gulf, or sometimes the disparity between law in the books, de jure, and law in action. But again, it is for not just for political parties, because sometimes we push so hard to get a bill passed into law, and then after that, you see people become fragmented. There is not that focus again for actual implementation of that law. And that is where the problem is. And you find that even with the political parties, I'll tell you, constitutional amendment and even legislative work and amendment has become very politicized. Even with the politics of it, that you can amend like local government autonomy, which ordinarily you would think that people will pass in the State House of Assembly, and they will reject it. Yeah. Is it not political? Because the way, like you mentioned, the rigidity of even the amendment that require 2/3 of all the states of the federation, but you would think that this should be popular. And the entire Nigerians are saying, let the local government be autonomous. And people say, let the judiciary be, have actual independence. Let's separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. And you see that, and then it wouldn't go. It depends on desperate interests of people, of individuals who have political powers, who have also personalized those political powers, who think about self all the time. And that's what we've seen in not just making laws, but also in giving assent to those laws. Because the 2012 amendment will have been a watershed in the history of constitutional amendment in this country, and will have put a big stop, because that will have required even the people of Nigeria to be able to really participate actually in those amendments. That would have been the last time a president would give assent to any constitutional amendment. It would have been taken to the people, for people to vote for it. And we don't have that, yet. And that's part of the problem, and a whole lot of politics that we thought, and we got it wrong, because since this constitution was handed down by the military, one would have thought that people who have fought so hard for democracy, immediately at the onset of that democracy in 1999, could have taken immediate action to strengthen and tie all loose ends and ensure that democratic culture is built, that rule of law, that constitution is. But no, because we are so selfish. Nigerians think self. An average political person thinks self. And they think self and their survival and their sustenance in the office and their, they will become the power. And that power personalization doesn't allow for institution building, doesn't allow for the kind of effectiveness we want to see with the some law. And some, mind you also, it was about election time. So they will pass that law to maybe the agitations of youth. You quieten them, then you've given them something, then they are happy. And then for the youth themselves, what extent are you pushing to make sure these laws are given meaning to? Yes, they will also tell you nobody stops them from voting. At least the age prescription has been brought down and they can run for many of offices. But we know the reality and why they can't succeed.
Thank you, Professor Ezeilo. You have said...
Ezeilo, please, can you take us through what are the proposed areas for amendment?
I think they've identified a lot of areas, of which issues around devolution of power is one, state police, local government, judiciary, gender, they are all parts of in fact, almost similar to what has happened. And they've called actually for memoranda, and people have, I think for the House of Reps, they have already closed. And then for the Senate, it's till the end of May. And the public, I heard last time, the Deputy Speaker, who is leading, the Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, they've already received, I heard even over 1 million, thousands already of memoranda. So how they sift through that and get out the critical issues will be important. But Nigerians are participating, they are responding, and they hope that beyond zonal public hearings, they could take it down to their state. And besides, anyway, every local government, every constituency, House of Reps, Senate, have their constituency, and they could actually consult their people. It's just that sometimes it's not effective and people are not engaging with their people at the grassroots to make sure that what is happening at the center is also what they want. But the most interesting one to watch out for, again, will be this local government coming up again. Is it going to be either you say, let there be 2 tiers of government, in which case you have just federal and state, and remove the number of local government in the constitution? Or will you now have it, because it's all a bit amorphous, or will you have it at a complete 3 tiers where even the election at that level will also be, determined, and run, because the way it is at this, control of the state governors, but at the same time, when it comes to resources, they get also resources, and then they have local government and state account. And there are models to look at, and we know even from those countries that run federalism, and federalism must also be physical federalism. For me, the evolution of power, it is so crucial, and separation of powers, is also very important to make sure the one on judiciary is really long overdue. The independence of judiciary must be guaranteed. The impartiality, the appointment process must be sure that one that will throw up the best of our first 11 and people with integrity, that will be there, because of course Nigerians are unhappy. Perception is everything, even though sometimes it is not. The corruption they allude to is not as bad as the public things, because of these perceptions, we need now more than ever to reassert the independence of judiciary, to ensure that persons of highest integrity are appointed, to ensure that the appointment process is transparent and is inclusive, and that the public participate in that.
On every law, and the people get involved. So is it taken on board?
Different. No.
Yes, it's different a bit also
because
from
referendum is a
legislative
vote.
referendum where people vote.
Yes.
And you can see that happening in states of America, where people, they have a vote to whether to vote for abortion, for vote for this type of bill. And that's really the participation of people in democracy. And that's what is desirable. And that's what will have happened, like you mentioned, under Goodluck Jonathan. The constitutional amendment then was the one in 2014 for him to sign, contained that referendum for future. If he had signed that, for future constitutional amendment, it will have been put to vote, so that Nigerians will have voted on it, and it will be conducted by NEC, and just like we vote for things, and maybe even alongside normal voting for an election, we will have that as well. And that would have been nice, because people need to participate, because they will take ownership of those laws, including for implementation. Let me ask you, there was a time we did the voice popularly with regard to constitution and people's participation, and we get to some marketplaces, you're asking people about Constitution of Nigeria. Do you know when Constitution was passed? Some will be telling you 1960 Constitution. I did this like in 2002 or 3. That's what resonates with the people. Because it was an independent constitution. It was negotiated. People who were a bit literate were aware of it. So we need to make sure that the common men and women participate in the process of lawmaking. Yes, that's why they have representatives. But we know that constituency engagement or citizenship engagement has not taken root.
But what are the guarantees? What are the guarantees? If we conduct every election that is conducted in this country leads all the other people who didn't win to court. So what is the guarantee that if you conduct a referendum, it will be accepted? And it will not be manipulated?
No. It goes with education. Yes. Whatever the result, because it's about sensitization. Yet, the level of ignorance and the lack of, education, people are not, the majority of them, just mind, people are not literate. So maybe the understanding may be different. But if these are explained, and people go out to vote, and they know they are voting for either state police or not, I'm telling you, Nigerians will participate. People understand, even in local languages, they will know whether they want it or not. But the issue is that at the end of the day, if you take it also, politics and influence of governors will come in. Definitely it will come in.
The issue of state police
definitely. Ethnicity, religion, all those our fault lines always impact on policy making in the country.
But some have argued.
And we've even seen a situation where people have come out to disown their own representative.
Exactly. Of course. There's a lot to talk about.
Constituency accountability. Yes. Because your people cannot be saying they want this, and then you will be going to say
but that's the truth.
So in other places, in fact, I've done study tours of some parliament, including U.S. Congress. If you meet some of them, they will tell you, I vote based on what my legislative staff are advised, because they will have taken the temperature. They will have taken audit from their constituency to know what the constituency want. Otherwise, it will cost them. It's very costly for you to go, and obviously, I agree. But we have to start building that democratic culture. Yes.
Indeed.
You know, we can't just say things will continue the way it is. The people and the electorate should wield the final accountability stake. But I think people should not even be afraid of that. You know what? I said we have not been able to use law effectively, because if you have a law that stipulates a model, even for that state police, it shouldn't be in one fell swoop. There should be benchmarks, you know, guidelines, and any state meeting up these guidelines, then you can have your state police. You must have a law that totally will comply even with the independence of whoever is going to be the state commissioner of police. Tenured office, work in this way, professionals, recruitment spelled out. You will find that the hands of governors are tied. The funding, how it has to be direct, consolidated without any. Once you set that up, hands of governors are tied. And anybody that abuses it, even as a governor, it might be also a distance for waiver of your immunity and calling for action for federal interference. We haven't used innovative ways and our laws to tighten this. Put me on that draft committee. I will draft a law that no state governor will violate and get away with it.
How will that better the life of the women? Because we have women at the National Assembly. Even
the life of the women or the life of Nigeria?
No, the life of the women, because it's women's rights.
Yeah. You know, of course, women, when they are involved in decision making, the number is, let's agree, the number is so insignificant that they cannot make the desired impact. Yes, as women representing a constituency, they represent both men and women, and youth and every other person in that group. But when you have a significant number, they will be able to represent the interests of women. Remember, if you give even ordinarily money to empower a woman, it trickles down, you know, to the entire family. So it doesn't trickle in the same way when men are involved. We know some of the women that we admired even in the legislative National Assembly, people like Honorable Linda Ibazo, herself, the current minister, Neno Keje. They have really powerful, consistent women, and they were able to make influence at the House of Reps then. Nobody could push. They are not people, not easy pushover at all.
But they were also
very
committed
and they were very effective.
There were also female legislators who also shut down.
And in the Senate then we used to have them, you know, like Senator
Prof, there were also female...
Senator Chris Anyanwu,
yes,
and the rest of them.
Yes, there were also female legislators. I just wanted to point this out, who did not believe also in the...
Oh, sure. No, definitely, because really you have to... The process of socialization is very important, which includes the family, the society, the school, and the way people think and perceive themselves. There are women who will tell you, no, I don't want to aspire. They will even justify it. Reading Bible or Quran, where God wants them to be is not this place. So when they're also there, we've had even women who will say, I don't support this bill on indigeneity. I don't support this bill on affirmative action. I don't think that's what women need. I think we should solve the poverty. We should look at violence, but they don't know the interconnections and how those intersections of that.
Unfortunately, we've run completely out of time. We've run completely out of time. I was going to even ask when we will have a bill that tends to put a stop to the frequency of switching political parties.
Oh yeah, that's an important one as well.
Yes. But it will never come up. It will never come up because it doesn't do. Everybody exploits it.
It was actually part of those rejected, and I don't know for what reason. There was a bill. It was part of one sent to the past president to sign on, which will have strengthened it, because that was restricted to the parliament, also with regard to executive and some others. And I believe it's important for building building political parties as an institution, and based on ideology. And it's a topic you can take up some other time.
It's something we'll have to do some other time.
For parliamentary system and the costing, I think, yes, it will be cheaper. But I'm really worried at a very micro level that we are not sophisticated for that type of politics.
We've been there before, so we can do it again.
And it's going to be very physical this time.
All right, Professor Joy Ezeilo, thank you very much. SAN, Emeritus Dean of Law, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, former Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development.